with some news from yesterday, and that is Tyler Van Dyke, quarterback formerly of Miami and Wisconsin, is transferring to SMU, and he's reuniting with Rhett Lashlee, who was his offensive coordinator at Miami back in 2021 when he was the ACC's Rookie of the Year, and it was really his best season at Miami. He took over for the injured De'Aaron King, threw for 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and he was never able to regain that form at Miami. You saw mock drafts having him top 10, top 5, top number 1 overall pick. I mean, stuff like that was being discussed, but there was a drop-off at Miami. Reuniting here with Rhett Lashlee in a situation where SMU found their quarterback, we thought, in Kevin Jennings as they reached the playoff this year, and you said maybe they could build around him, but awful performance in the playoff from him. And it leads you to believe that Rhett Lashlee thinks that there's something big he can still get out of Tyler Van Dyke here.
Yeah, of course. Look, the Miami connections are obvious. We saw it on defense all year. Last year with SMU, Jafari Harvey made some huge plays. Elijah Roberts, one of the best defensive linemen in the ACC. Jared Harrison Hunt also had a really, really great season. I mean, also on the offensive end, too, you had Ja'Kai Clark, the center from the University of Miami, and, of course, Brashard Smith, running back, who sort of took the conference by storm after switching from wide receiver. All Miami transfers. You did also have Keyshawn Smith, Romello Brinson at wide receiver. So the Miami flavor is not anything new, but here, both today and then yesterday, when you get Zion Nelson, who a lot of people thought was medically retired. He was the left tackle for Miami when Tyler Van Dyke was really rolling there in 2021. A lot of people thought he was a future pro. Of course, Tyler Van Dyke, the ACC Rookie of the Year that year, a lot of people thought he was a future pro. So you look at that 2021 offense that was rolling with Rhett Lashlee, with Garen Justice, who's the offensive line coach, and you say, all right, left tackle on the way to the pros, quarterback on the way to the pros. We're here in 2025. Of course, they are not in the pros. Injuries had to do with it. Zion Nelson with knee issues. Tyler Van Dyke coming off the torn ACL at Wisconsin. And just general inconsistency, more so for Van Dyke. But you reunite those two, and could you potentially get the production that had people thinking that these were NFL players at premium positions? Just focusing on Van Dyke, what he really excelled at with Rhett Lashlee was, making quick decisions in that scheme, throwing the ball accurately, the arm talent to get the ball down the field, had a really nice deep ball, really good timing on it, and just looked very comfortable in this fast-paced system. Next year, when Rhett Lashlee left to SMU, Josh Gaddis from Michigan came into Miami, sort of stole more of a pro-style offense. Van Dyke struggled with his progressions a bit. Just wasn't the same free and loose player that he was with Rhett Lashlee. Shannon Dawson comes in more of an air raid system. Van Dyke excels at first, has an unbelievable game against Texas A&M. Looks like he's right back on his way to being an NFL prospect. Then has a horrible 4-interception game against Georgia Tech and just mentally lost it, right? He was not an interception-prone player before that game, but after that game, he was throwing interceptions at a rate that was one of the worst in the entire country. So a lot of different eras, right, of Tyler Van Dyke, and you're hoping to recapture that 2021 magic, because if you do, not only will he beat out Kevin Jennings, he'll be one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC.
And look, Tyler he's a big golfer, as he's talked about before, and I'll use a golf phrase, also a baseball thing, but the yips. It was almost like he had the yips where there was a lot of second guessing in terms of the throws he was making after that stretch that you just talked about. And then he goes to Wisconsin. It wasn't a great first couple games of the year for him before he got hurt there, but I'm not sure that was ever the best fit for him for the style that he plays. Now, looking at the reuniting here with Rhett Lashlee, and again, it's going to not just be handed to him, right? Kevin Jennings is the starting quarterback. This is a playoff team last year. He really had a nice second half to the season for SMU once he got comfortable, I thought. But you can't discount the opportunity for TVD to come in there and win this job. And again, talking about how I think this offense could be better for him, he's someone who likes to push the ball down the field.
Yeah, and I'm looking at just some of the stats here. This guy was a big, physical quarterback in the ACC. His shuttle time in high school was 4.28, which, when you look at a big guy like that, that's moving. He has some quickness in the pocket. He doesn't always show because sometimes he's mentally a little bit, concerned with the rush, let's say. But when he's rolling like he was with Rhett Lashlee, he can't elude guys in the pocket. Was the best baseball player in his region there in Connecticut, where he went to high school. He was a pitcher, also played basketball. Actually started his career as a tight end in high school before moving to quarterback. So there's some athleticism there, of course, coming off the knee injury. So, this player has ability. There's a reason why NFL teams were looking at him. It's just going to come down to how much is still there mentally and physically. Because like you said, Pete, after that Georgia Tech game, he went from one of the more efficient passers in the country to the most turnover-prone quarterback in America. And it was as simple as one day to the other, a switch. So can that switch turn back in a familiar setting? If it does, he's going to pass the ball better than Kevin Jennings. That is a fact. He is also going to be more physical, big than Kevin Jennings. When you watch that Penn State game in the cold weather, he had some great games in the cold weather at the University of Miami. I think of him at Pitt, just completely, late game in 2021, freezing, and he was throwing it all over the place.
Was that against Kenny Pickett?
Maybe. Might have been. Man, it was 2021 is a long time ago, man. It's like it's hard to go all the way back there. I think it might have been against Kenny Pickett. That was a game he won and threw the ball very, very well. And again, he's more suited for those kind of environments, I think, than a Kevin Jennings, who, when things are rolling, he's great. But when you have a little bit of, adverse weather, a bigger, more physical defense, some of the size stuff and lack of just pure horsepower, I think, catches up to him. Van Dyke can give you that if he's right, but the question is he going to be right?
And look, not to speculate too much on, it's tough to call it a controversy when there hasn't been any practices or anything like that, but you have a very interesting situation that could be developing here. I mean, I'm looking at it like once they get into spring and maybe that race starts to get tight, is Kevin Jennings looking at it like, man, I just led this team to the playoff last year. I don't even feel like I should be in a position where it's a battle. I'm going to go look elsewhere after spring, right? Or the same thing with TVD. Or again, obviously, if you're SMU, you would love for both of them to be there and battle it out. But I'm just looking at that situation and thinking, I'm not so sure how it's going to play out in that room.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, the performance is going to dictate. Jennings doesn't have a lot of juice right now. I mean, let me say it differently. He had a great year. They went to the playoffs. It was an unreal season for SMU, the best season they've had since the Pony Express.
The momentum was gone after what we saw at the end of the season.
Right, and with that position in particular. So there's a window there. And I think, look, if Van Dyke comes in there confident, throwing the ball and making plays, he's going to start commanding some respect. Some of these players even know him. Right? Some of the players that were with him at the University of Miami. At the same token, if he is throwing interceptions and kind of carrying some of that bad body language and lack of confidence that he had towards the end of the Miami tenure, I don't know if he's going to be able to win over a new locker room.
Carl Olive asks, is TVD the type of quarterback that needs a running game to be effective? He looked bad against zone defenses in the ACC. I think any quarterback is obviously aided with an effective run game. I think the issue is he's not very mobile, which, listen, he's a better athlete than people probably give him credit for, but how willing he is to go out there and extend plays and things like that might be a bigger issue than not having a good run game with him.
Yeah, and that's a great point also about the zone defenses, Carl. I mean, we saw against man coverage against Texas A&M, he was throwing all over the place. Then after Georgia Tech, you saw teams not only play more zone, but just drop more players in general and play the pass. And he had all day to throw many times and made those poor decisions. It wasn't like he was making those poor decisions under duress. So that is something he's going to have to show that he can overcome. Of course, this offense and the speed that it operates is going to limit the looks that he sees, just because you can't be too exotic against a team that's flying up the field like that and no huddle and getting up and down. So he flourished in this system last time. We will see what happens here at the new stop here. Bloom saying TVD's NIL should be nil at SMU. Give it a rest. Look, if he's playing well at the level he played at last time he was there at Lashlee, he's a very valuable player. Do you guys remember Alabama trying to tamper with him and take him to Alabama? That was pretty well publicized that Alabama
with Saban still.
With Nick Saban was trying to grab TVD and make him the starting quarterback at Alabama. Of course, his star has fallen quite a bit since then, but it shows you the value he could have when he's right.
So one of the more interesting developments.
Oh, wait, hold up, Pete. Before you even move on, I want to get to a couple